Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the south-afrifur podcast. You're listening to myself, Ivik Wolf, here. We have a very special guest in. I will always, until the end of days,
Fuck this
remember Buck Riley.
My name's Buck.
Buck Riley. I think our audience is very well attuned to the idea that I will always forget names, including Scratch's, and always confuse everybody else. Scratch, who is also with us this evening, as you may have heard him chime in as he does.
Yep.
And yeah, I should have told you that earlier. Files for playing. Anyway, so this evening we're going to be talking to Buck about his albums as well as some of his musical work. Large amount of, I think you have a very, you actually have a very large plethora of things, yes?
Something like that. I could stand to be more prolific, but I got a lot of weird stuff going on.
Well, I mean, like, tell us a little bit about your stuff then.
Well, primarily I work under the name Exit Mouse nowadays. And Exit Mouse is, let's see, how do we describe this? I can describe it as animal rock. So it's got elements of alternative rock, jazz, and every now and then a little bit of hip hop in there thrown in.
A little bit of punk as well.
Oh yeah, there's definitely a lot of punk going on. It's very, how do you say, anti-authority. Yeah, it's also very eclectic. I was going to say there's a lot of political overtones. It's not even undertones. There's a lot of political stuff going on.
Anti-establishment.
Yeah, anti-establishment.
As punk music was wont to do, actually.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, when it comes to sort of those themes and everything like that, why exactly those particular ones?
Because they are very important to me as a person. And I feel like if you have a platform, which I sort of do, you should feel empowered to explore the things that are very important to you. And, share those ideas and empower other people to share those ideas.
Okay. And
definitely.
I mean, like, with that kind of perspective, obviously, with music that has that kind of depth to it, is there a particular, I think, obviously, we spoke about delivery just now, but I mean, like, is there a particular delivery that you like overall? Obviously, you've got a whole bunch of different genres mixed in, but which one would you consider to be your favorite?
I'm definitely very much into alt rock. And, well, I mean, I like all three things: alt rock, jazz, hip hop. It's all good. But I think I'm rooted in alternative rock. That's where it starts.
Walk us through your musical career.
All right.
Who was the first band that you... Sorry to sort of interject this. It fits with the theme, I swear. Or the topic. Who was the first band that you saw and you were like, I want to do that. I want to be like them. I love them.
Probably Mike Got Spiked, which is an Irish metal band that in college they would come and play shows with us at this really shitty little place called the Rally Point. Yeah, they were amazing. They have since broken up, unfortunately, but they were this really loud, aggressive, really eclectic, amazing band that did a bunch of just ridiculous stuff. Like, they change, different time signatures, different, like the way that their energy would shift from like verse to chorus and things like that. They would be like, okay, it's kind of like, you get the idea of like, okay, we don't want to play that first verse the same way, so now we're going to play it like it's ska. And like, okay, cool. And I just love that stuff. It was so much fun.
All right.
I thought it was going to be something like completely like Foo Fighters or something. No, it's
I've never
weird...
seen the Foo Fighters live.
No, it's this weird off-the-wall Scottish metal band that you saw in a hole in the wall somewhere near campus.
Yeah, it's Irish band. And well, it's not just that we saw them; we also played. We played with them pretty often. It was me and my college band, Controlled Substance.
Controlled Substance was your college band's name.
Yeah.
All right. And like, when and or how did you get into the music scene to begin with? Like, let's take it even further back.
Well, I've always been very interested in music. Even like my mother would tell stories of when I was like 2. I would go and play songs on the piano, and they would be like, "Oh, that was really good! Yay, encore!" And I just play the same song again, and that was impressive to them. So I've always been writing music. Haven't always been great at it. Um, High school and college, I started playing in bands, but then in college, my band broke up in a very sort of bitter way, and I was left thinking, am I even good at this? Like I had to prove to myself that it was worth me pursuing music after that. So I started writing and recording stuff on my own, and that started with like GarageBand, of all things. Moved into FL Studio and finally into Reason, which is what I use all the time now.
All right.
Kind of developed that skill of recording and producing and writing music on my own. And so I've been doing that since college. And only recently I'm coming back and starting a band. Like X and Mouse is a 4-piece band right now, looking for a 5th member.
What instrument? If anybody's ever listening and wants to possibly message you.
Oh yeah, I play guitar. Rhythm guitar specifically. I'm not terribly great at leads.
And
but I tried to. Oh, the band is looking for a lead guitarist. So if you are in the Memphis area, Tennessee, we do need a lead guitarist.
All right. And if anybody would like to record with you, what kind of skills are you looking for that matter? Like, I mean, like
for recording?
I mean, even for recording, for live performances. I mean, like, again, you're looking for a lead guitarist, so that would mean that they have to have a very set of skills.
Yes. I like the idea that you can play better than me. I write a lot of... I write a lot of like second rhythm parts, so having a sense of rhythm and being able to combine the two parts together, that's kind of important. And you'll hear that a lot in one of the songs that I know we're going to play today. There's a second guitar part, and they kind of combine to make a fuller, more interesting chord progression. And then, of course, being able to do basic solo stuff that most people can do. You know your scales. You know how to make it happen.
And okay, so
and an eclectic background in music too. Don't just play one type of music. Be able to flex your jazz stuff as well.
Nice.
Right. And I mean, like, when it comes more to your band, like sort of your particular expectations, the kind of stuff that you wanted to be able to do. Just give me 2 seconds.
Sure.
Gather your thoughts.
I'm thinking like I know that what I record and what we play live are probably 2 very different things. I started X and Mouse as a band in order to basically have a live way of performing my music, because I would play at conventions and I would play just by myself with an acoustic guitar and a loop pedal, which is fine. But I think there's a lot more impact when you have a whole live band up there.
Yeah.
And so a lot of it is adapting what I've recorded for playing live. Although now, actually, even though it started as a vehicle for me to perform my own music, the other band members, of course, have their own songs. So we're recording some of those as well.
All right. So as a band, obviously, like, how do you currently with Exit Mouse? Like, I think I've asked this question before, especially in our sort of pre-interview stuff when we were talking about that. But like, how did you sort of connect the idea of being both furry as well as, like, say, a punk rock singer?
It's a good question.
Whole bunch of other musics. Yeah.
So for me, I feel like furry is just a part of my identity. Like, I'm a furry. It's not going anywhere. And the way I express it is...
shock and horror.
I know, Jesus. The way I express it generally comes out in my lyrics and in my other writing, so that's where it happens, and that's just what I'm interested in. So it's there, and it's gonna be there, and there's no pretending it's not there. That is kind of a core part of who I am as a furry. And why not run with that? Because first of all, furries, everyone loves furries. They can say, "Oh, look at that, how cringy," but then they're gonna turn around and watch Looney Tunes or use band mascots. It's like Blink-182's Little Bunny.
Mm-hmm. Or go and watch BoJack Horseman.
I'll go and watch BoJack Horseman. There's nothing wrong with furry and mainstream music image. I don't think, because it's so prevalent in our culture as logos and things like that. So I never thought it was a problem. As far as making music, I want to make the music that I like and want to make, and I don't think that it's necessarily like, how do you make music that's only consumed by furries? Like, that's
difficult,
right? So I don't think there's I don't think I have an interest in just doing that. I think music in general has a broader appeal, and even if you put animal themes in the lyrics, or if you put a big mouse mascot on the front, it's not going to change the appeal of the music to other people.
Speaking of mice mascots, if you ever get too big, do you think that, and I say too big, bigger, do you ever think that Dead Mouse might like come up to you and say, hey, you're using my shit?
Okay, so first of all, Dead Mouse already had that problem with Disney.
Yeah.
And so the first thing I did was like, okay, I work with my friend Mari-sama. She's done my music since I was way back in the day when I was Husky in Denial. She's always done my artwork. And I said, okay, I want to create this mascot character, but it's important to me that the silhouette of the mascot is not the same as Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, don't fall in that trap twice.
Yeah. So when we created the mouse mascot character, we had that in mind of it needs to be unique. And we took a look. Okay, so X and Mouse, I don't know if you know this. X and Mouse is a reference to one of the items that you can pick up in Earthbound. Or Mother 2, is some people might know it, across the world.
Did not know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mother 1 was never released across the US or in the West at all.
It is now. It was released on Virtual Console, but Mother 2 is the one where X and Mouse shows up, and that's Earthbound.
Huh. That's actually very interesting. All right.
Yeah.
So carry on, yeah?
So we kind of said, okay, well, here's what this character looks like. What about this character do we like visually? And then how can we distinguish it differently? And one of the things that I really like visually is the use of signs and the use of arrows. And so we kind of incorporated that into the character, into the design. So sometimes it'll pop up here and you can see it's got arrows for ears, basically.
Yeah.
It's got the Antifa arrows on the shirt, holding a sign. There's always a different sign that he's holding. So we wanted to use that as a reference for how we designed him.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, since we're probably going into that direction, you mentioned the group Antifa. Like, how exactly do you sort of connect with them, and how does your music?
One thing that's really important to distinguish is that Antifa is not a group. It is anti-fascism. Yeah, it's more of a movement. Okay. So there's not a group that's called Antifa. It's a movement of anti-fascism. And I'm anti-fascist. That's I'm not very anti-fascist, and I really love the evoking that sort of imagery because it's very how do you say? It's got how do you say this? There is something that's evoked. It's very evocative about the imagery associated with anti-fascism that I really like. And since a lot of my music, I've written a lot of stuff that hasn't been recorded yet, and there's a lot of anti-fascist sentiment. One of the songs that you actually approached me with, we did, we're on a German radio station. We kind of decided the sentiment would be appreciated, but maybe the content is just a little.
It would be a bit difficult to play the song and not necessarily piss a whole bunch of people off. Kind of.
Right.
Which, I guess, I mean, but then again, that's the intention of the song, isn't it?
Well, I don't think it's intended to piss people off as much as empower people to
do what the song says.
Right. Well, to be anti-fascist and not allow it in their communities. And so.
Think of it like One Punch Man, but like one very specific group of people.
Yes, I think we've given it away enough now.
Yeah, you can go find it. It's online. It's there on YouTube, on Spotify. You'll find it.
It's a good song. Tweet.
It's a good song, I have to say.
Yeah.
But yeah,
but it's in all honesty, I mean, like since the 1970s, the 1980s, 1990s, there are songs like this that come into that kind of like sort of position. They're aggressive. They attempt to say what they need to say very sort of plainly. There's no sort of hiding around any kind of thing. Like if you want to do this thing, do it. Kind of.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the.
Like,
listen. I think there's a nice little jazz break in the song that kind of gives more context to. Okay, so obviously, I'm not promoting anything illegal here, but this is not something you can really tolerate in your communities because it's infectious, and
and it's not normal. This is not normal.
It's not.
That is the mantra.
And normalizing it is bad. Yeah. So there's a lot of, and I really love the idea that there's the use of arrows again fits back into Exit Mouse because Exit Mouse, basically the idea of what Exit Mouse is it's an item. It's really a character, but it's used as an item. It's a character that guides you out of danger.
Yeah.
So when you're in a dungeon, it helps you get out of the dungeon without getting hurt.
Okay.
Like the fairy from Zelda.
Kind of. So but you would just use the Exit Mouse and it says something to the effect of the Exit Mouse guides you to safety.
Basically. Oh, okay. That's actually really cool. So I mean, like obviously this, along with all of your other projects or like your previous projects, you sort of created a particular type of following. Obviously, how do people perceive you? Has anybody ever come up to you and said, "Hey, I'm kind of looking for a story here"? Maybe like somebody's approached you about your music and said, "This is actually pretty inspiring."
Well, there are a couple of ways that this comes. Most recently, again, I had someone from Germany send me a message after buying a bunch of stuff on, what's it called, Bandcamp? Because I got a Bandcamp, everybody. Buy my stuff.
Plug.
Bought my she bought stuff on Bandcamp. It was like, I found this song. I found it really empowering. I played it over the speakers in our hackerspace. And I feel like I'm ready to, take on anti-fascism. And I was like, yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Another way that recently I've been getting people talking to me is through my work with a web series called Cat Ghost. I did a couple of songs for them, and one of them in particular that was for like the season finale of Cat Ghost. It's my most popular song right now. It's called This Is Not the End.
Yeah.
Or it's not, is in parentheses, so maybe it is the end. And a lot of people resonate with that through the emotions that it evokes because of their association with Cat Ghost. And so they find me. So a lot of people will find me through those media that I've done, like Cat Ghost or the Bedfellows. A lot of them don't know who the heck I am. But then, like, oh, that's you. Okay, cool. So that's always fun. And then the other way, which I really appreciate, is when people are like, yo, I've never, like, music like this isn't happening. And I really appreciate, like, the energy and the eclecticness and
Yeah.
all of these, like, this music is interesting to me. And that is probably, I mean, all of them are pretty rewarding, but that one especially is rewarding because it's validating. Because there's a lot of insecurity as a musician sometimes about, like, oh, am I even any good at this?
Yeah.
Is this worth listening to?
I mean, I think, like, maybe with that segue, we can actually move into the first song. If you'd like to talk talk us through that just a little.
First song is called "The General's Dogs," and it is a love letter to Starfox. So I really like Starfox. I've always liked Starfox. I wrote a song about Starfox, so that's kind of what it is. And so if you're a Starfox fan, you'll hear a lot of references to stuff that happens. They're kind of subtle if you don't know what it's about, but it's about Starfox.
Thanks for making it blatantly obvious, but yeah.
Are you sure, though? I mean, like, could it be about anything else? Like maybe some sort of, subterfuge.
Oh, you can make
lyrics,
it up. Yeah, you can. It's really about Starfox.
Let's have the listeners hear it out and see for themselves whether it truly is about Starfox.
Yes.
Anything else? Like if you for those of you who are listening, put it into the comments if it's anything other than Starfox.
All right, running it up.
All right.
Chase through the dark night, crashing marks like a short game all night, and I don't monkey around. You wanna test us just with a wrong team? There ain't no rest with the best, there is full steam. Don't get it twisted, this fist is a light beam. I'm scared to kill us for now. Can't waste time chasing down ghosts and shadows. I've got bigger shoes to fill. To learn how to be my own man. My intuitions never let me down. Surrender's not part of the plan. We're not the general's dogs. We do things our own way. So when the hounds are howling, that's when the foxes come out to play. Not a dog of a dog fight. Not a dog of a dog fight. Not a dog of a dog fight. Not a dog.
Starfox.
It's the General's Dogs.
The General's Dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, fixations in some weird senses. But yes, definitely the General's Dogs. I think one of the things that we can sort of say about that song is, again, compositionally, it's very well put together, as Scratch mentioned while we were here in the dead space between
Here in the
songs.
off air, in the in between,
Here in the off air,
in the
yes.
blind eternity,
The upside down.
whichever reference
So-
to weird nether space you prefer.
So one of the things that we do want to maybe talk about is, your general influences. Where exactly were you what influences you in the outside world of music? What were the things that sort of create the things that you do?
So big influences. One that you mentioned like offhand that you heard in that particular song was Incubus. I really love Incubus. I'm a huge fan of Incubus. So I've got all their albums and stuff. I like them a lot.
I mean,
Pixies is another one.
Ooh.
I love Pixies.
I think I remember when I was listening to some of the songs as well, I was mentioning things like Pearl Jam as well.
Pearl Jam I wouldn't cite as an influence personally.
Yeah.
But grunge in general. I love grunge. Grungy noise, just the entire image of grunge is also interesting to me. So yeah, and, going back to Pixies again, kind of like was that pre-grunge music. So I do love that stuff. I would say another huge influence is Radiohead. I like the way they layer stuff together. It's always very interesting. There's lots of, if you listen to them, it's all about layering. And considering they have 5 people, 3 of whom are guitarists, that's a pretty interesting thing that they do. And then outside of that, I really love I love Portishead and Massive Attack and
Massive Attack, yeah.
I know one
Sneaker
song
Pimps.
from both of those bands, Massive Attack and Radiohead, and they were used in movies or series.
Yeah, they usually are. And I also like to get into like hip hop. Like I love Run the Jewels right now a lot because again with the kind of anti-fascist, anti-power in general sort of thing.
All right.
I got a bunch of stuff. I can go all day, but yeah, I've got a lot of influences.
I hate to say this, right? But since the start of this interview, you very, very much remind me of a far more intellectual version of Chris Pratt's character on Parks and Rec. Because your band, you sound sort of like Chris Pratt, and your band also has has the term mouse in it. So it's like if what's his name? If Andy actually grew up and it took his music further than Johnny Karate.
I'll take that. I love Chris Pratt.
I was about to say, I don't know if that's a compliment or not, but that's how it feels in my head.
I think he's adorable.
Chris Pratt's awesome.
Yeah.
And yes, adorable is a good adjective to use.
Even when he is a muscle-bound muscle man.
Well, I definitely like him better when he's soft, but I'll take him as a what's it called? Guardians of the Galaxy.
No,
I don't remember his name. He's not Rocket Raccoon. I don't remember his name. Star-Lord.
Yeah.
Star-Lord. Yeah.
No, I very much still prefer him as Andy. Andy Dwyer. It's just like that. That's the first place I saw him, and I still remember him as that like extreme goofball character.
I'm a little bit of a goof. I'm not good at being funny or anything though.
I mean,
it's keeping us entertained, so definitely.
Yeah.
Talking to you is not pulling teeth. Sorry.
Oh well, I'm really glad to hear that.
So, I mean, I know that we sort of spoke about origins, but like one of the things, I mean, obviously we spoke about like influences and everything like that. You said that you started playing music from a young age, like we were talking apparently what, 6, 5?
Yeah, younger. I was interested in.
Like how did that begin?
I mean, I don't really. remember a lot of it. But I've always been interested in just playing, just like my parents, when they saw that I liked playing the piano while I was at my mom's college, got me a keyboard, so I'd play on my keyboard. When it came time for school, took a couple of piano lessons early on. Got guitar lessons later on when they were offered at school. Played in the school orchestra. So there's that sort of stuff where I was always involved in music, but really starting to write, really write music, probably high school.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
And
I was terrible at it. I wrote a bunch of really terrible things because teenagers are just they're just edgy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was about to ask, are you proud of your first composition?
No.
Is anyone proud of the first anything they did?
Not even a little bit. I look back at some of the stuff that we had way back then, and I'm like, oh, some of this is cringeworthy. Some of it's really good. Some of it would be better if it were recorded better. I'd love to re-record some stuff.
Yeah, I was about to ask, are you ever willing to actually do things like re-record and remake something that...
I would love to go back and remake the first album I did as Husky in Denial.
Yeah.
With, new band members and, actual drums and basically all of the stuff I've learned since 2011. Mm-hmm.
I'm actually just looking at our music pool quickly to see which Husky in Denial album we have.
It's probably It's Too Late, or so I'm told.
Kung Fu, actually.
You have Kung Fu? Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, I mean, every time I get a chance, I play FU quite often. G is also fun.
FU, yes. That's one of the... Yeah, G. I was going to say, if you go back, X and Mouse doesn't have any of the hip-hop recorded yet. Mm-hmm. But if you go back to Husky in Denial and things like FU and G, you get that little bit of a hip-hop vibe.
No, I mean, I like that. How do you explain those influences, for instance, when it comes to hip hop? Where do your hip hop influences come from?
Well, again, a more modern, obviously in 2011, Run the Jewels didn't exist. Mm-hmm. But Aesop Rock did, and Bus Driver. Okay. The people who currently make up Hellfire Club, which is just a hip hop collective on the West Coast. I like a lot of the New York rappers, so New York and then West Coast, usually where I'm fixated as far as rappers go and hip hop goes.
And Rage
Against the Machine, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, and it's that those are actually again your breadth of knowledge of music is actually pretty. It's intense. It's almost for me my knowledge kind of begins and ends at anything with a guitar in it mostly, and otherwise just metal. Mm-hmm. So it's actually very interesting because I mean obviously the older I've become, the more broad my musical interests have been. And again, finding when I first sort of got interested in your music, for instance, was when we had that particular album that was sort of placed onto our radio. We bought the album and I was like, who is this? And I started playing them, or playing you. That's weird. But yeah, so we started playing your music, and I was immediately interested. And then when I realized that you no longer were that band, that's when we started talking about things. Then I don't know, you've got so much more music. You've got this wide variety of things that you do.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we maybe can segue to with that is that how exactly did you get into the idea of composing music for video games?
Wow. Well, actually, what's interesting is I started in college. I got I guess you could call it something of an internship. I was working with this small game company here in Memphis called Resolute Games. And my friend was like, hey, I know this guy, Chris Shubershevsky, and he's looking for people to do music for this game. Why don't you submit something? And so I did, and he'd be like, okay. He was like, okay, this is what we're looking for. And so I tried to make what he was looking for. He said, no, it's not quite it. And I was like, okay, well, how about this change? And, it basically sent him a bunch of changes based on what he was asking for. And he was like, your ability to actually be flexible and change things is good. And we're trying to make a game company. Do you want to come and do music? I was like, hell yeah, I do. So I got an early start on that. But of course, none of those, as after the company went down, none of those games are on, the iStore or whatever anymore.
Yeah.
Apple Store, App Store,
Mm.
App Store,
The App Store, yeah.
Android, whatever. They're not there anymore, so you can't go get them. I still have the music files, but you can't find the games. What you can find though is Bedfellows, and that was actually, getting into the game part of that started with doing the web cartoon. So my husband comes to me and was like, hey, you know that comic Bedfellows? Yeah. I was like, yeah, I love that comic. He was like, Sheen is looking for someone to do music. You should send him a portfolio. Do it. And so I was like, hey, I do music. Here's what I've done before, and I'm really cheap. And he was like, you're hired.
Okay.
I love your work and I'm affordable. Please hire me.
And so that was a working relationship that lasted. It's still, he still comes to me if he wants music, which is great. So apparently I made a good impression.
Well, music that's not Andrew WK, apparently.
I did do that music too with the Andrew WK episode.
Nice.
Oh, right. Fair enough.
That is really cool.
So, I mean, like, when it comes to that, like, what changes when you have to make game music and then like sort of any other kind of composition? What are the differences between those? So, for anybody who's making music, what would they need to take into account? All
right, and this is generally when you're doing commissions as a musician. Being able to be flexible with what is being asked of you, because you'll have an idea and it's going to be rejected, and you're like, okay, how about this? And I'm like, that's not really what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something more like this. And also the other thing you got to work with is people who don't know how to speak music, so they know what they want and they don't know how to communicate it, and you've got to figure that out. And then adjust based on that. So it's a lot of going back and making changes and things like that.
It's an unfortunate truth that that developers and artists, no matter from which field, speak completely different languages. Like you need almost to the degree where you need someone qualified in a position to speak for and between them. So
Translator.
Yeah, you need to be able to communicate that stuff like really well.
Yeah, and a lot of times I'm really, with Chris especially, I'm my own translator. So I'm like, okay, so he says something, I'm like, okay, so that's not what that means. It sounds like to me you're looking for this. And also getting influences. I'm always like, okay, send me something that sounds like what you're looking for. And that helps a lot of times bridge the gap there.
I mean, and musically, that's a little easier than attempting to change a particular sort of, I don't know, a particular story to fit something else. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, like
What do you
movie,
mean?
say translating a written story into a movie or into a video game, for instance. Like how do
I would say translating music is a lot easier. I would imagine. I don't really have a lot of experience with doing movies, or like changing something from one media to another. This is not exactly what we're doing. What I would be doing is more like, I need you to make music. This is kind of what I'm looking for, and then going back and forth until you figure out, okay, that's it. That's what it is. Run with that, and then get back to me. Right. And so when Chris is Sheen. Shenanigans. Chris is like, hey, I want you to do me a demo that's like Metallica but with chiptunes. Because I think that's kind of what I want to do with the game. And so, I sent him a demo, and he was like, that's it. This is exactly what we want to do. Let's do this. And so I did a whole 15-track album, basically, of metal. It's mostly metal. There are a couple of other genre influences, but largely it was metal with chiptune leads. And leads would the chiptune would imitate a guitar doing leads.
Nice.
So you have this sort of like high intense energy, but with the reminder that, hey, this is a video game. It's kind of like, okay, so Frenzy is the name of the game, and Frenzy is a different take on the Rampage series. That's a lot more fast paced.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, after last time I played Rampage, is a lot more interesting. And so the music really is like, okay, we want to recall a classic. Like this is an old school game sort of thing. There's pixels, it's pixelated, but we also want it to be modern and high and like intense. So metal and chiptunes.
I actually think I remember Rampage. I remember playing it on either a Sega console or it was an old Nintendo console.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure probably. I know there was one on N64, and I know they had them in arcades all the time. And what was interesting about it in arcades is it was a 3-player game instead of 2 players.
Yeah.
That's
fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
So no, it's literally just running up and down buildings, punching them, and just like.
Essentially, yeah. And this was all based on the Frenzy episode of the game.
Yeah. I remember that episode as well. It was very, and I think it was a plug for that game as well. At that point.
Well, at that point, we hadn't even thought of making the game. The episode had been made, and that was like 2 years before he was like, okay, well, let's make a video game.
I don't know. I'm just thinking that we can actually play the song that we picked for that one.
Yeah, it's called Blue Bunny Blues.
Yeah.
Probably one of the more. It's got a lot of more subtleties than some of the other stuff. Some of the other stuff is just like hit you over the head metal kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I like this one because it's a lot more of like what I would compose as Exit Mouse. Personally, like I like it that because I want to use this as a regular song. This is awesome. That's how I feel.
Speaking of, would you actually put lyrics to any of them?
We did not. We thought about doing one to one of them. It was a Rage Against the Machine inspired one, but instead we were like, no, let's keep with the chip tunes. And also, it was a time crunch type of thing.
Okay.
But yeah,
can I ask before we start off? Do you have any chiptune music inspiration, favorite bands, kind of stuff?
I can't pretend that I listen to a lot of stuff, but I can say for sure I love Hip Tanaka because of his work on Earthbound. And so going from his work on Earthbound and then finding his other stuff, that's how I got into his chiptune stuff.
All right. Well, I want to chat chiptunes as soon as this is done. So yeah, let's roll this one.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Hi.
Hi, we're back.
Hi. Hello. Scratch.
Yes.
You like chiptunes.
I like chiptunes. I have a thing for those things.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like I said, it's very like the sort of the organic drums versus with the essentially the chiptune guitar. It sounds so good. Anamanaguchi does sort of the same kind of vibe, but it's always been a lot more almost like punky Scott Saves the World, Scott Pilgrim versus the World kind of thing. But
Right.
which they even did the soundtrack
It's a
for.
great album.
Yeah.
Scott Pilgrim. Yeah, that is so awesome.
Oh yeah. But even their like standalone stuff, there's one they did with and something Rainbow in the Dark was this one that they did a cover for one of their hip hop tracks. I think it's Das Racist with like yeah. Anyway, I'll find it and link it at some point, and it just sounds so cool. Like you can stuff chiptunes in a lot of things, and I will be so happy to just play it, watch it, listen to it, hear it, whatever.
Oh yeah, I love the sound. I've gotten like after working with that, I've gotten a lot better at actually manipulating the chiptunes, and I really love playing with it. Of course, that's probably why you liked FU is because there's that chiptune thing going on. But yeah, I love chiptune. So I don't listen to a lot of like modern artists using chiptunes, although I do a little bit. But I love going back and listening to like NES albums.
Yeah.
Like just the soundtrack, like the soundtrack for Original Mother is of particular interest to me. Like, okay, so the soundtrack for all of the Earthbound series is of particular interest to me.
Yeah.
But big influence on what I was doing. But yeah, I love going back and listening to those old NES soundtracks because they're so interesting what you can do with just bleeps and bloops.
Yeah, and
changing the waveforms. Yeah.
Yeah, and what it sort of sounds like in like the sound that limits you to such a capacity, but it's still memorable in so many ways. Like no one forgets like 1-1 Mario. Like
yeah.
And that's literally just 4 channels that they're working with, and one of them is white noise.
Yeah.
All of that is literally just white noise that they allowed into the track. It was amazing.
Oh yeah. I think there's something to be said about a limited palette, and what you can do with it. Because a lot of times we think of it as being a limitation, but really what it is a way to really focus on. How do I say this? Limitations can be good for creativity sometimes. It gives you a boundary. And then so you take these 4 channels and you're like, okay, what can I do with these 4 channels? And that's where your creativity comes in.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, that's why stuff like again, in the gaming space, why stuff like game jams usually have a theme. And the limitation being you have a weekend to do it. It's like the theme is the name, or like the word present, in whichever interpretation you want that. Make a game about that. Go! See you in 2 days.
Oh boy!
And because working from a blank canvas is so difficult, but if you have something that just that ignites a little bit of a spark of an idea, then you can run with it. Yeah.
And I mean, speaking of those, and I don't know why I'm constantly going back to the influences because like there's so much more we can actually talk about. I think. And especially the way that you started. I mean, you mentioned classical music at some point in a conversation we had before this, and you actually have classical music tracks, if I'm not mistaken.
I do. I did some classical music for a game with Mischief Cat, which should be coming out later this year, called Evidence. Evidence. And there's a series of them. The one that we were Mastermind Detective. So it's like a mastermind game, which is a type of puzzle game. And you basically collect evidence in certain order and stuff like that to solve puzzles. And so I got to do classical music for that, and that was tons of fun.
Right.
And I say classical, I guess probably more correctly it should be called orchestrated music, because it's not actually in the classical style.
So, modern classical then? Or classical instruments, but not necessarily classical, like
Yeah,
field.
you wouldn't. We say classical music a lot,
Mhm.
but we're actually referring to other different types of music other than just classical. But
Okay.
yeah, essentially yes.
It's not Wagner, but it's
It's not Wagner. No,
styled
it's
in
a
the
lot
same
more
way.
modern.
Yeah.
A lot more modern.
But I mean,
Probably
say
more inspired by film music.
yeah.
Hans
Than,
Zimmer, kind of.
Sort of the way to say Hans Zimmer.
mm-hmm. And then there's,
Uh,
but kind of like this kind of weird, spooky, like I'm solving a mystery type of music.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I mean, how do you switch between different genres? Like, how do you get yourself into the headspace when you're trying to write for a particular genre of music?
That's a good question. Well, I'm familiar with orchestrated music because I was in, like I said, I was in orchestra.
Mm-hmm.
In
What did you play, for instance? I don't think we
I played
actually
violin.
mentioned- Oh,
Mm-hmm.
huh.
That was a skill I used to have.
Used to. You don't have it anymore?
I'm out of
Rusty?
practice. I can pick it up and play it, but it doesn't sound great.
I can
But yeah,
blink it and I can plunk it, but I can't make it sing.
right.
Oh.
But I have some knowledge in how those instruments work and how they sound, and I like to actually pull that stuff in whenever I don't know, how do I go about it when I'm thinking about different genres. Usually it starts with a piano piece because that's easy. It's an easy place to start,
Mm-hmm.
and then orchestrating it out from that piano piece. And so when I'm dealing with things like orchestra, that's where I start. Electronic music is a little different. A lot of times it's like, okay, I need to find a fun synth. Let's figure this out. And so I'll start with something that sounds interesting and then build around that.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of when you're working, and again, like what would the difference be when you're working on solo projects versus working with an entire band?
Well, solo projects, I have a lot more control over what the output comes out to be because I don't have to worry. It's all me. It's all a lot of it's like what I can do, my own tastes. I have a lot. It's how do I say it? It's composing essentially, which I feel that I am fairly good at. I'm fairly good at composing. Working with other people brings in an element of, well, the nice thing about working with other people, get different influences on the sound. Everyone comes from a different background in music, and having those things meld together is what makes being in a band usually worth doing. And so to some extent I'm like, okay, here's the part, this is how we do it. But okay, so another thing that's different about where Exit Mouse is starting and say my college bands is that with Exit Mouse starting, it's like, okay, I've already composed these songs, I want to play these songs live, here's how the song goes. When it comes to more organic stuff, which is kind of where we're heading now with my other friends' music, it's like, okay, I have an idea. It's not a full idea. It is, I've got this bass line, and it's really, really dope. But I don't really know what to do with it from there. And so the drummer's like, oh my God, I know exactly what drum line to play with that, and plays that drum line. And so it's like, okay, great. And then, so they're playing that. And then you can, with guitar, I'm like, okay, I don't think the bass line is so active. Guitar line doesn't need to be that active. So I will, but I want it to sound colorful and interesting. So I'll do this. Keyboard does its own thing. And so all of these different elements combine because different people are writing their own parts that would not have happened at all if, say, I was writing it by myself or they were writing it by themselves.
That makes sense.
And I think that's the magic of collaboration, is that things happen that you wouldn't have done on your own.
All right.
It's always good to have a bit of a deeper wellspring to pull from. I mean,
Exactly.
You only have so much experience, but having someone else sit there and just say, like, "Hey, listen to this." I don't know, the synth line. Like, what do you? What does this evoke? What do you think this? Where could we take this? That's always useful.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and also I think a lot of times what happens when you work with collaborators is that it's like it goes in unexpected ways because you're like, okay, here's this bass line, and it sounds like this kind of genre to me, and then someone else can come in and be like, what if we did this? And then the song completely changes.
Yeah.
But what if this, and it was ska?
Hell yeah, dude. No idea.
Yeah.
I've taken songs and been like, what if it's ska? What if we did this as ska? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. We actually did a punk rock cover of Giant Woman by Steven Universe. Yeah. Not by Steven Universe, from Steven Universe. So that's one we're recording right now, is a punk rock version of that.
Oh,
it's a lot of
I'd
fun.
love to hear that. That does sound like a lot of fun. And
It's in the works.
And I guess you get to choose the next song here, if you'd like.
Ooh.
We've got 2 left.
Spare Hearts,
Yeah.
and this is parentheses, not the end.
This is Not the End, featuring Caleb Hiles. Let's do that one real quick. Let's end on that one because it's not the end. That makes sense. Let's do Spare Hearts. I love Spare Hearts.
I also love Spare Hearts. Like of the songs, like that one really sort of got me. Again, 5 o'clock in the morning, was listening to that, and I'm like, oh yes, this.
5 in the
But yeah,
morning.
we can talk about that afterwards.
Okay.
Sure.
I love it so much.
Spooling it up.
Spooling.
Spare change, spare parts, old hands, warm heart. Spare change, spare hearts. Spare change, spare parts, old hands, warm heart. Spare change, spare hearts. Spare change, spare parts, old hands, warm heart. Spare change, spare hearts. You pant like a dog in the wounded sun, and your breath's fogging up the air. Your coat turns from russet to gray, bit by bit. You chant at the moon like your song is done, and you're trying to make amends. Your furrowed palms on display. I know you're afraid of making a big mistake, but you're just what I need. Spare me the fear. We're all that we have right here. Our band is good for me. I'm a broken boy 'cause I play too hard. Spare parts made of mud and glass. I jigsaw my way into you. You're a tired man with forsaken dreams. Spare change on the backseat floor, but your whiskers kiss my heart. Oh, I know you're afraid of lust, love and sing, but I'm just what you need. Oh, spare me the fear. We're all that we have right here. Our band is good for me.
me get close to. Let me get close to you. Let me get close to you. Let me get close to you. You. You pant like a dog in the wounded sun. You pant like a dog in the wounded sun. You pant like a dog in the wounded sun. You pant like a dog in the.
And we're back.
Yay!
Right. So that was Spare Hearts. As yeah, why don't you just walk us through that for a bit? Like, what exactly was the intention of the song and the like everything? Like, what do you? Yeah.
Well, I was actually playing around with a brand new loop pedal that I bought just for playing live shows.
Mm-hmm.
And I came up with like this interesting like percussive loop, which is the and that stuff, and then like a really nice bass line. And I wanted to do some like vocal toying around, so I just like said the first things that came to mind and like harmonized with them. And one of the actually it was a mistake. Spare Hearts was a mistake. So one of the mistakes ended up being the title of the song.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. At the time, so it's this looped sort of thing, which is why it's got the same bass line all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, I had this story really heavily in mind, so I decided to write a song about it. Oh, excuse me, I had to stretch for a second.
Stretch.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's actually inspired by like furry porn I read. Believe it or not.
Wait, what?
Cool, thanks.
Yep. Thanks. I don't know. I think it's pretty obvious, but like I don't really want to delve too much into the type of stuff I'm interested in. But the story was about an older man having an encounter with a much younger man. There's a lot of guilt about the age gap between them, and the younger man's actively pursuing the older guy. And what I thought was really compelling about it, though, was the subtext of how they were both very broken people, and that they sort of become a source of healing for one another over time. So that's more or less what it's about. Furry porn.
Ah.
Okay. Huh. That.
Yeah.
Don't really know how to respond to that, but good for you.
I liked it. I liked the story. It was interesting to me, and I thought, why not? Let's write a song about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll find
But then,
in
like,
weird places. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. I mean, like, oddly enough, I mean, there's always what was that one series there was both a British version and an American version of this particular series. It was about this group of, or there was actually another movie that was based off of that, the Broken Hearts Club.
Sounds familiar. I haven't watched it, but I think of the Lonely Hearts Club. I don't know.
Is it? No, it's not that.
Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. God, I haven't listened to the Beatles in ages.
I know, right?
I play them every now and again. Listen to the radio. Yeah, the Broken Hearts Club, a romantic comedy from 2000.
I never watched it. I was not very big into romantic comedy.
Nor am I, unfortunately.
6th grade, 2000.
Just BT dubs, and one of the reasons why I actually really like this film is Zach Braff is in it.
There you go.
Okay.
Zach Braff.
Yeah, Zach Braff. Believe it or not, he
I'm
plays.
surprised he still exists.
He existed in 2000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He plays a coked up, like, you know, they actually they go through all the gay stereotypes, and like sort of debunk many of them.
That's so good.
Yeah, it's really sort of it's a nice little feel good movie in some senses. It hurts in other ways.
Mm-hmm.
Have I seen this movie?
I would suggest. I
feel like I've seen this movie.
I know that I tried watching it in 2006, and I watched it over and over again.
2006.
I love it. The idea of like a mainstream movie subverting gay stereotypes.
Yep.
That is not something I would have thought existed in 2000, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, and I mean, like, and I guess it ties in a little bit with the song "Spare Hearts" in some senses. Particularly, I think, oddly enough, it probably would fit very well in that movie, because they do have songs like that for the cinematography. Speaking of which, your future projects, obviously up and coming, like you've mentioned one of them so far, but I'm assuming you're a very, very busy musician currently. So what are future projects for you now?
Oh boy. Okay, so always on the back burner is our X and Mouse first big album, which is Fanatic Kingdom, and that's part of the way I want to do that. I want to explore the idea of being a fanatic in two different ways. So there's the pleasant way where I explore things that I'm really a fan of. So that's where the Starfox song comes in, Steven Universe, stuff like that. But I also wanted on the flip side of that is to talk about right-wing fanaticism, which is where things like the song that shall not be spoken on German radio come in, and other songs that I've written that have not been released yet.
Yeah.
Along those lines. So that's always on the back burner because I've always got some. So the one that I'm really excited about right now. So I'm working with Mischief Cat, which again is the little independent game company, and we decided, hey, we want to do some world building for these characters. Let's create a virtual band. And so right now we're making a virtual band, and we wanted to do something really that's really uplifting and positive. So naturally for me, I was like, let's do the Pillows. I love the Pillows. You guys know who the Pillows is?
It sounds familiar, but I don't think I do.
They did the soundtrack for Fully Cooley, FLCL.
Oh, seriously? Okay.
Yeah.
Furikuri. FLCL.
Yep. So that
Scratch.
band, I'm using them kind of as a base of inspiration, and we're creating a virtual band. So that's going to be super exciting.
So in other words, you're creating a band specifically for the game itself.
For the world in which the games take place.
Okay. So that's
with
really
plans,
awesome.
yeah, and hopefully they'll feature in some of the games in some ways. So creating so it's kind of like Gorillas. So you're creating characters, and those characters are actually the band, and so I'm writing the music for their band.
Because I know that there was a movie that did that at some point as well. It's the
They did, and Scott Pilgrim. Beck wrote all the music for the Sex Bombs.
For the sex, yeah, fair enough. It was Beck, and then there was a band out of the '90s that also. Jeez, I play them so often actually.
What, that featured in the movie or?
Steel Dragon. Steel Dragon was created as a band for a movie. That was based off of goodness knows how this entire thing came together, but they created a band that was already a band, also with the name Steel in it. And weirdly enough, if you know another band called Steel Panther feature in that movie before they even created Steel Panther.
What? That's so dope.
Yeah. Like, Steel Panther was, like, created in, like, 2000 and something, like, late 2000s. This movie was created in 2001. Randomly, Steel Panther's lead singer comes as the replacement for a singer that was, like, pretty much it was based off the storyline of Judas Priest. It was panned by Judas Priest because they weren't represented correctly. So yeah, the movie kind of flopped, particularly because of that. But like that's the sort of like weird, convoluted sort of storyline between like three different bands, all with the name Steel in them.
That's funny.
Yeah,
I love the idea of creating a band. And what's more interesting also is not just creating the music for the band, but creating the characters. And so I'm really excited for this bit of world building. It's like we're just getting started, and I'm so excited about this project. I just can't even talk about it without freaking out. So that's my big thing that we're working on right now. Yeah. Obviously, again, working on the album. Obviously, also working with a band. We're trying to put together stuff so we can continue to play live. That's always an emphasis is working with the band and kind of like polishing things up. So a lot of my time is looking back at older songs and saying, okay, so we want to adapt this. Let's get these learned. So that takes up a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go for it.
I don't have anything else.
Okay. With all of these projects in the air, and I mean, I guess like your day to day, like how often does your day to day get involved like with that? How do you balance time with, I guess, work and other work?
Well, that's a good question. Because I spend 9 hours a day at actual work, and then have to think about music afterwards. Sometimes that can be really hard because there are times where you're just like, I just can't today. I'm going to go to sleep, or I'm just going to sit on Twitter all night and do nothing but Twitter because I'm addicted to social media. But that's a whole nother story in and of itself. But, it helps when there's a bit of joy behind the project because it's something that you want to do when you get done with work. So it's not a chore.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of tedium to recording music and mixing music. But polishing something to the final product itself is kind of like a zen sort of thing. So it's worth doing. Like it's kind of like those little mud balls that they do in Japan, where they take a ball of mud and they kind of compact it together really hard and then polish it until it's a shining ball. So my music is a ball of mud that I'm slowly polishing into a really smooth, curved, shiny ball.
A beautiful thing.
And it's kind of nice. It's a lot of fun to do. So that is kind of, and I've got other projects on top of that. So music itself is not the only thing that I'm doing after work too. So
all right,
finding a balance is really about deadlines. And that's probably why I haven't made a lot of progress on on the next album past what I've already done, is because there's no deadline for it. But all this other stuff, deadlines are really helpful for me. It's like, okay, I need to get this done by this time. That means I need to allocate this much time to get it done by then.
That's called Parkinson's law. Like a project will fill up as much time as you're willing to give it.
Yep. Deadlines are very helpful for me.
And I point back to the Game Jam example. Go ahead.
No. I was just like I was thinking about that entire sort of principle, particularly because what other projects are you actually working on outside of gaming? If you're talking about,
and a lot of it's personal stuff, but I like to write, so I do a little bit of writing. I have friends who are like, "Hey, let's do this project." Like, okay, that sounds like fun. We can do that as well. So I have other creative endeavors that I'm interested in.
Should probably speak to Tempo at some point.
Tempo?
Tempo-kun? Yeah.
I don't think I know Tempo.
Okay. I think you two would get on like a house on fire.
That's one I've never heard before. I love that.
It's actually positive as negative as like getting on like a house on fire is pretty much
that is a new one for me. I love that.
Burn the house down.
I love that.
Burning down.
I'm gonna start using that.
Tempo, he's on Twitter. You can have a look for him, Tempo-kun. He's a writer himself.
Yeah. Tempo Writes, I think, is his account name.
Yes. Ideologically, I think you two would get on very, very well.
Oh.
He's just, he's a writer. He's working on games as well. So.
Oh, nice.
Definitely synthesize I'm making weird crab movements with my hands. But yeah.
There's a symbiotic
Hit me up,
process
Timbo.
waiting to happen.
On Twitter, smooch this pooch.
Nice.
Mm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
Tempo. It feels like he has a hand in every single project on the internet.
And
That's
he also
ridiculous.
seems to have limitless amounts of time, and I don't know where he finds.
Oh man,
Yeah.
maybe he can give me part of his time machine because I could use limitless time.
Yeah, you and me both.
Yeah.
If I could clone myself, I would. Just so someone else can
Heck
take
yeah.
all the bullshit.
That time turner thing from Harry Potter, I was like, yeah, dude, that sounds amazing. I want that.
Yeah.
And I don't mind avoiding myself every now and again. Great.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, just, oh, fuck this asshole again. Disappear into the shadows.
What? Yeah. So we are coming down to the last 10 minutes of the show. It's around about this point that we do talk about plugs and the like.
Plug away.
Obviously
Live
you
shows,
have-
band camps, Patreons. Tell us everything. Where can we find you? Where can we buy your shit?
All right. We're on all the major stores, but really, if you want the good stuff, go to Bandcamp, which is xandmouse.bandcamp.com. You can listen to us on Spotify, on YouTube, on whatever your favorite thing is, whether it's Apple, Deezer, whatever. We're on all of them. You can find us on Twitter at exit_mouse. Website exitmouse.rocks.
ROX or ROCKS?
ROCKS.
Okay.
Okay.
ROCKS, full thing. Exitmouse.rocks. Mischief Cat. So check out Mischief Cat. Let me see what their Twitter is. I think it's just Mischief Cat. But I don't want to say that without it. And then you go follow some rando who's like, who the hell are you? Hold
And
on.
you're kind of sitting there going like, you are mischievous. I'll see myself out. Sorry.
Good night, everybody. Here till Tuesday.
Any merch? Any live shows coming up?
Live shows. It's going to be local shows. Memphis. We play every year at MFM. So if you're ever going to MFM, we'll be there. We have a couple of things coming up in March that we're looking into. So that's going to be exciting. If you're in the Memphis area, just keep your ears on the ground. We've got good stuff going on. And,
Any particular bars you guys like playing and particular days you do that?
we don't have one that we have a consistent reputation with yet. We played at PNH, looking into shows at the Lamplighter Lounge. There's a house show looking to do in March. We work with one of the punk rock scene people who usually does stuff, PMH. So we were at the Queer Fest last year, doing Queer Fest again this year. All right, here we go. Mischief Cat. All right, so evidencegames.com. That's EVIDENTS Games. And it's a puzzle series made by @TheMischiefCat on Twitter. The Mischief Cat.
Just name the con that you go to again, because I think.
MFM, Mefit Fermi. It's a local con here in Memphis.
How did they come up with Method?
Mefit is a skunk. It's kind of a play on the idea of Memphis. Mefit. So yeah, that's actually one of the longest running fur cons. It's a very small one though. It's been around probably about as long as Anthrocon.
MFM.
MFM.
All right, cool.
Meat.
And I try to go to other cons. It's now that I have a whole band, it's a little harder to travel,
Understandably.
but we're working on it. Yeah.
I mean, you can put one person in the drum box and try to, get a drum
Ship.
when you get that side.
It's like ship them to the con.
Sort of Top Cat style.
Oh no! For some reason now I'm thinking just like in the hold of a cargo plane, you just see this box that has like this guy playing drums like from inside the box, and then you just like crowbar the thing open, and he just keeps going.
Heck yeah. I love it. Just like
Dude's
Looney
got style.
Tunes.
Yeah.
That needs to be a music video at some point.
Another thing you should check out is Cat Ghost, which you can find on YouTube. YouTube, just search for Cat Ghost on YouTube.
There was a very... I keep... When I think about Cat Ghost, I hear the word Cat Ghost, and I understand Cat Ghost, and I'm like, this is actually something that I've seen before.
Mm-hmm.
It's maybe.
It's really cool. Cat Ghost is really interesting because it's got this kind of multimedia, like AR thing going on. Mm-hmm. So you've got the actual cartoon episode, and each episode comes with a game. And it's like a puzzle game you have to figure out and unlock more mysteries about that entire world.
Ooh.
So yeah, Cat Ghost is really cool.
White cat face with blue eyes.
I can't remember if she has blue eyes or not, actually. But yeah, it's a
little pokey teeth. Cat Ghost. First birthday.
Window. Yeah, that's the one. Number one is birthday. I did songs on episode called Window, and I did the song for the season finale, which I think is may have been called The End or something like that.
Judgment.
No, I did do the music for Judgment. That is a Judgment has a chiptune song that I did. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. I'm definitely gonna have a look at this. I actually don't know this.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, and I love ARs. These are awesome.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of, that is the last song. Last song is from Cat Ghost, and it is probably the most popular song that I have right now because of Cat Ghost. And it is called This Is... Despite what Spotify and all of those places are calling it, they call it This Is Not. Because they just cannot handle the idea of parentheses in the middle of the song name. It's called This Is Not the End. Yeah, I put This Is Not the End, and they were like, oh, there's nothing after not, so This Is Not is what they put.
Ugh. How dare those algorithms, how dare they?
It's not even algorithms, it's that they don't like parentheses, so they literally kick it out.
Mm-hmm. Alright. Well then, if we're gonna play out with this, then I will say, Buck, it has been absolutely fantastic talking to you.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed talking to you guys too.
Yeah, and I think, let me see here. Just as a point.
Yes.
Oh, Trace, I will be at MFF. I don't know if we're going to be performing at MFF.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Hunting Dingo says it's eating time.
It is time for moms.
Oh, okay.
Yes, Mahlzeit, which means meal time, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Then I've got something about the guest. Anyway, yeah. So we're gonna play out with.
This is parentheses, not the end.
This is parentheses, not the end. This is also not the end of the show, as many of you know. We are going to be playing a little bit of music afterwards. I'm obviously gonna be playing some of your other music, the ones that we do have on file.
Oh.
Yeah, it's something that I do. I tend to play at least 3 or 4. I try to play furry songs as much as I can, as many as we have. So yeah, your songs are definitely on the list there.
Yes, awesome.
Okay.
Cool.
And yeah, so it was really a pleasure having you. We really do appreciate having a chat with you. And if you have any updates in your projects and things like that, just hit us up. We can talk about them and maybe even talk to some of your other bandmates.
Sure.
If they are furry, I'm assuming.
Actually, no.
Oh shit.
Sorry for outing you.
They know. They're listening right now. It's okay.
Oh, okay.
Awesome.
One of them commented earlier, yeah.
Was it Tim, just Tim? Or...
Oh, no, Tim's not in the band. It was
Okay.
Reshi.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to play out with This Is Not the End. And yeah, thank you everybody so much for listening. And thank you, Buck, once again for joining us. This was a really, really good podcast. We really enjoyed having you on.
Mm-hmm.
My pleasure.
Definitely have you on again.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next week, maybe the week after that. But regardless, stick around. Ivik will be playing music after this.
Whoop, whoop.
See you around.
Hi!
hurling nowhere through unending void. We're blinks of time, clinging haphazardly to life. There's a comfort in knowing the truth, that there's no point to anything we do. Every minute we waste is a gift. Our ambitions are ours to forgive. Our kingdom is built, knowing new worlds will rise from our bones. We play pretend till we run out of time in the end, and we'll do it again till it's done. But we know that it's never